Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Going on, this is not until later, is it?
Starts at 7. Well, TV says 7, so it really won't start till about 7:15 or 7:20.
Right, based on what's going on, that's fair. Yeah, well, let's not hold our breath anyway. I think it's the right way to turn it off. So it's depressing the words.
Just about. I told moving able to wear jeans and lose a tire on game days. I told staff that it's better enjoy it today because you're going back to business schedule tomorrow.
I think lose a tire is definitely business casual.
Jeans, not so much.
Frankly, I mean, if you get people to come in, I'm much less fussed as to what they wear We used to be sticklers for that sort of stuff, and we're not worrying about it so much at all now.
Yeah, I look the other way a lot of times when I wish I didn't. Just 'cause sometimes stuff looks like bombs, but
Well, so
we're still
I mean,
public facing.
yeah, as I say, I mean, it's to a certain amount, yeah, it's what one of my bosses used to refer to as, you know, when it gets out of hand is when it's gardening casual.
Yeah.
You know, which he described stuff he wouldn't want to be seen gardening. Now, he don't believe he ever did any gardening his entire life. He probably wouldn't want to be seen going and remonstrating with his gardener,
Right.
wearing up whatever it was, but
Yeah, mine's when it starts looking like pajamas. Did you change clothes or did you, is that how you got up this morning and then came to work?
But yes, I'm afraid, yeah, after the Mr. Bennington in it, all went downhill rather rapidly.
I think we might win tonight, maybe.
I was after we're gonna go and kill Cardi or whatever.
Yeah.
That would also be.
Either way, it would be probably all right. I think if we're not winning, we probably will do that.
Yes, well, I couldn't believe they put him on to try and get a fourth short-handed goal. I thought, you know, that's it's.
Rubbing it in a bit.
Yeah, and when we were standing in front, he was on the phone and saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
let's go and really piss those people off."
Hey, did you get my email?
Yeah, I just saw it a few minutes ago.
Did you send me an outline?
I did not, because I don't really have one. Can you pull up last month's and just
Got it.
brief it, start from there?
I got it.
I don't really have many notes to start from.
I just, we've got to get a pool pass now.
Technically, you always had to. It's just a lot of people. It was on the receipt. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I just paid just now, so
Or you fancy
I'm on the way.
paper. Right there.
well,
Digital ink, you're
why
signing
would I
up.
waive for Emma Addison? I haven't even, don't go and put this on Emma's rather than Rona's. Because I mean, literally, it's got waiver for Emma Addison here, and it should be me and Rona. She's in Texas.
Hey,
Hello.
long time no see.
Yes, yes, yes.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. You didn't get sort of washed away or something.
No.
I had to drive Sarah to the airport, so it was crazy.
That's harrowing. Was it still?
Oh, it was,
that hard?
it was bucketing when we got up there. It stopped when I left around. It was bucketing down when we came out.
A British expression. Bucketing.
Well, it's a lot more polite than, you know, if I refer to what's going down and listing down. It'll be dry and light, and it'll be rain and spade, and listing down, and then take an umbrella.
Oh, gotcha. So I apologize. I have double meetings tonight, and the next one is the Dissolution Foundation class.
Ouch.
And it starts at 8, and it's in New City, so.
I say we should be done by 7:15 then.
I think, I was going to say, call the meeting, ask the president to call the meeting to order. And,
We need one more, then we will.
who do we have on the?
Yeah.
Just kick it on there somewhere.
Oh, is that how you go in and change my memberships? and all?
If I could make it actually work for it. There it goes. Fine.
It should be me and Ron.
Come
Oh, right, there we go. Oh, shoot. Cora, what's that?
There we go.
Oh, we're a minute early, I guess.
Oh, 7 o'clock now. We're good to go.
Are the Blues let in a goal yet?
When does it start?
It starts at 7 in theory, which means it'll start about 7:30 by the time we're done with. Yeah, I swear, I mean.
Are you Blues again, guys?
Okay, so we go not.
I'm not a Blues fan.
Well, okay, so as long as we go Colorado, I mean, we'll let you off. the hook.
We probably need to define fan. I'm not the fan of any other hockey.
Okay, that's all right.
It's good enough.
You're again, as long as you don't tell us
That's my
you're,
drift.
as long as you tell us you're not really the Colorado, because otherwise I can keep this thing going till about midnight.
Right?
I'm gonna sit and,
8 o'clock.
I wonder if I should do that too, so I can see some of us.
I was just sitting in the room, but it kind of feels like.
I don't think we're
Probably not gonna get it
anyway.
anymore, yeah.
I think we're done once.
Can you hear us okay?
Hey. Oh.
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we can call the meeting to order. Scott, do you have roll or? do you need to take a second?
Katie, you want to get, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, then on to approval of April 2022 minutes. I will motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? All opposed? Meetings approved. Or minutes. Next up, review visitor comments. Okay, old business.
July 4th race. So I will throw it open to the floor. Did you guys have any luck with greeting tens of thousands of dollars worth of sponsorships last week when you all went out?
I went around, we split it up. When I split it up, she took Old Webster, I took Old Orchard. I handed out this. What I found in a lot of places, and I haven't connected with Troy Dingle yet, he's to Alexis. But what I found was lots of times it was the manager on duty, I'll pass this along,
Right.
that kind of thing. So I made sure I quickly through it with them. I highlighted that what's new this year is a race. So there's t-shirt sponsorships, which then will be worn on, for 20 years, if they're like our family. That kind of thing. And everybody seems very, very positive, but nobody signed on the dotted line like right then. Especially because I said, the best way to do this is to contact Scott, fill it out, that kind of thing. So I don't know about Lindsay. Yeah.
Well, I will say that I greatly appreciate you all going out and doing that and trying to hustle up some dollars last week. Unfortunately, after this week, and we'll talk a little bit more later down in my staff report, I'm not sure we're gonna be able to pull off this 5K this year with some of the budgetary issues that the city is having and some of the staffing issues that are gonna happen as a result of that. I don't think that we have the staff or the time to pull this off this year. I still love the idea. I think we can make it happen in the future, but I haven't dedicated enough time to it to get it up and get all the things that need to get done on the back end done, and I just don't think you can pull it off. So I'll open that up to you all because it was your all's plan and idea, and willing to take advice, but from a staff perspective, I think we ought to probably pass on it this year.
Staff in a specific area, particularly like police or just staff overall?
Staff and my department.
Okay.
Gotcha. Is that you don't have the staff or you don't have the staff that would be available? You'd be available that
Yes.
day? All of the above.
All of the
Okay. Well, that begs the question, would we have the staff for a non-community days event?
I think the answer to that would certainly be yes. That's like fun. I think the answer would certainly be yes. On a different day when there's not 27 other things happening that weekend, and on such short notice. Not that it has been short notice, we've been talking about this for a couple months, but I just don't think I can't dedicate the resources to it this year that I think it's going to be successful. I'd hate to throw it out to the first go round and then be awful and then it not ever go again because we did really make it a quality event the first time.
I'll just blurt out, that's disappointing, obviously, I think you speak for a lot of us, but at the same time, when we started talking about doing an event, we threw everything out there. Remember, we were doing goldfish races or whatever, I don't know what all we did, but you know, there's a lot of Webster focus on community days, and I would love to do an event that brings the focus to Webster outside of community days and maybe, you know, builds momentum for the rec center, for engagement in the community over and above the thing that brings in, you know, a bunch of people. Usually, I mean, it's not a struggle to get people here for community days, especially because they don't want to go downtown. So yeah, I'm disappointed, but I'm no less interested in doing things that elevate our community for the members of the community and at large. So,
Well, if you do get any responses, then we would put out.
I said I'm appreciative of your all's time for doing that, and that's not that it was wasted. I'm sorry that.
I only went out for about an hour and a half, but I did go to like 10 places. So if someone calls about it, you could just say, well, we're not doing the race, but there is, because there's still, because I didn't just sell it as, yeah, so I printed out all.
I mean, there's
and
all
just
the other
gave them,
sponsorships.
and I did like use the, not the hard sell. I was just real like, this is a sponsorship opportunity. If you guys are interested, and I kind of sold it more as not just the 5K, but you know, it's during the carnival and parade and banners for in the ice rink and stuff like that for supporting, you know, Parks and Rec. So, but I would mention if they do call you to tell them they're not doing the race, because I wouldn't want them to feel like they were told one thing, I told one thing and then it didn't come through.
Yeah, their eyes honestly lit up when I said, hey, we're doing a 5K, you know, it's gonna kick off right before the parade. Talked with a couple of people who look like runners about my pot, that kind of thing. So, you know, it was a deep dive into that. But yeah, if they could know that in maybe subsequent years or a different time.
I do think the more time of year would be better for that. It's
I was pretty, I should say this because we're being recorded, but I'm not a marketer, but I did point out, you know, we've been pandemicized for 2 years, and any sponsorship, any engagement, I think people are gonna be coming out in droves. I think we're gonna be past Omicron enough, and that people are gonna go, I want normalcy again, I want happy, I want to not live in Ukraine, which we don't, and do something sweet and pleasant. And we talked a lot about just that it's a big opportunity for sponsors, regardless, so.
On the other hand, you've got sponsors who've had 2 years of reduced business because of the same pandemic. So
true.
their ability to go
So
and
true.
fund and go and their free dollars to go and support things.
Yeah.
Actually, it'd just be good if the community will go out and support local businesses because they're there to keep the local businesses there.
So true, so
So
true.
it's, which isn't to take away from, you know, the point you're making as well. And I think it's great, you know, everything we can do to go and
Mhm.
build interest in the
Right, right.
community. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree.
So I hate the bad news. I'm not one for being a quitter, and this kind of feels like quitting on it.
I think
But I think
better
it's
to quit them and not do it the way we really like to do it.
100%.
Like you said, like have it be where it isn't something we continue year after year.
so. I think we come back out with either this idea and have a full year and really get it going and ready, or we pick a different date, a different activity, and run with it.
So it's become quieter that way now. So.
Yes.
So, okay.
Any other old business?
No, I would just tell you, I mean, if you guys can hear me okay, Scott, I completely understand and recognize, you know, you can't, okay, perfect. Thank you guys for the efforts to that point. I mean, to pull something like that off we all knew it was going to take a lot of execution and frankly, a lot of luck. But what David just mentioned there of asking folks for business, right now, I mean, it was always going to be tough. So I'm glad that we kind of pulled the plug on it rather than just execute something poorly and then have a sour taste in our mouths for future efforts.
There is definitely interest in the 5K, but like.
Right?
you said,
Yeah,
people
exactly.
Definitely were like, cool, that sounds neat.
All right, new business.
I don't know if it qualifies as new business or old business really, but something I thought of that I saw on a trip was fundraising directly at the site of a park. So what this park had, I believe it was in Washington DC. They had a little placard at the park that literally had a QR code to support that park, to support the playground improvements at that park. So you could ask the people, that's a way of asking the people at the facility while they're there, can you support us? And I don't know what the costs of signage would be for something like that, but you can also look into sponsorships for that. There may be some interest in XYZ company in Webster sponsoring the capital improvement, whatever, for this park, this playground, this ball field, this, whatever that facility might
Do you
be.
recall what that park was?
I don't recall which one it was.
You think it was in DC then?
I want to say it was in DC, and I want to say it was downtown is where we were staying, so it was just a little downtown park. Matter of fact, one cool thing they had in the park was they had a community journal that kids had written in and stuff. It was sitting in a little thing, and it was just kind of a little cool thing I pulled out and flipped through and had little journal pages from some kids who played there. Just something I thought that was cool, but the thing that I really took away was, why aren't we asking them here while they're here? I mean, just a little QR code, send us $10, send us $20.
Donations.
Like,
Simple.
So I don't know what that would entail. I would assume signage and there's costs involved in that, but,
probably would try that with some temporary signage, and
yeah.
if it seems to be working
Generating
well,
any
then we can
buzz,
turn it
yeah.
into real signage, or permanent signage. I think that's a cool idea. I'm heading to DC in 3 weeks, so I will I'm gonna walk around downtown and see if I can find that.
Yeah.
But you said it was more than just a QR code, it was like asking their opinion or like.
It was kind of a support. I don't remember exactly the verbiage and everything. I didn't take a picture. I just walked past and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, that's something over now. But I don't remember the verbiage, but it did have some sort of explanation as to this is the park, this is the improvements we wanted to make or are currently looking at, the play structure needs something, whatever that case might be on a park-to-park basis you could do. Specifically ask, because I think a lot of times when you ask for money from people, they want something, they want to know what it's being used for. We run into that in PTO and things over the years. We've run into those kind of things. Just generating general funds. Sure, there are some people who will certainly support that, but when you give them a project,
Fund a need.
fund a need, exactly.
Yeah.
And you give them something. And so when they're in the park and you're asking, maybe that might just generate some buzz. I don't know. Just a
I
thought.
think it's a great idea. It kind of, it's very random. It reminds me of, this new thing they do in video games where they'll say, hey, kids, do you want to see this in the game or this in the game? And they literally have kids pay virtual bucks, which is my money, real money, to put in whatever they want in the game. And if enough thousands of kids pick that and put money towards it, they will add it to the game. But I know. So you're saying a QR code, which is an amazing idea, because when you go to that, you could also have it attached to anything you wanted. It could be a survey. Would you rather have this? Would you rather have that? Where would you want your money going?
Certainly.
There's a lot that you could do with that, and I don't think it would be that difficult. Once you do the QR thing, it kind of takes you right to the website.
Right, you could be very generic on the signage and then find out about this part.
Because I think, like you said, people want to know where they're they might not want to donate for a dog park or a track, but they might really want a playground, or they might really want like bird watching area or something, you know, different.
Do we have
so-
everything picked out for Crockett Park yet? We could let people vote. Do you want a little dog arena? Do you want?
Well, we don't.
Another pavilion? We don't want the dog arena.
I don't know,
Were you, when, who was saying last, meeting that there's a spray water feature near Hawken House, that park
Yeah, Southwest.
at Southwest?
Yeah.
And that's the only one that's got one, so maybe Crockett needs one, we could say, I don't know, if it's 30 grand, we don't want to do that, but, you know.
Yep.
So they could fund a need and get to pick it and get going on it, you know?
Cool idea. I will look into that some more. Looks like DC's got a whole donation, playing a rock, a river, a tree, and park for all people donation.
You were looking, trying to find stuff as well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't find the actual sign.
No, me neither.
Yeah, but cool, yeah, that's a good idea, thank you.
And I could be wrong about DC, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm trying to remember where it was that I saw it. That was where I was recently, and I remember the journal there.
I like to think of having things going on in Washington DC, so thank
Yes,
you.
yes,
Just,
we had
I'm
a
gonna
wonderful
just go with
vacation
that.
there, family vacation
Yeah.
there, a month or so ago.
Nice.
Wonderful time.
So I had some new business too. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I mentioned this to Scott, and he said it was good to bring up, but, and we've talked about this in the past, but kind of picking a day this summer, maybe something during the week in the evening when it's cooler and people are off work, and doing like a park cleanup day. So I was at Lockwood Park twice, on Sunday and then today. And there were a lot of weeds in the like inner circle of the playground and by the fire pit area. And maybe I'm just in yard mindset in my own house. So I'm like picking weeds and leaving a pile. And I was like, maybe we could each like pick a park. And if Scott gives us like a list of to-dos, because your guys, especially in light of the staffing conversation, I mean, maybe they're just getting to the big stuff like mowing the lawn and getting the trash bags. But if Scott gave us a list like, hey, I need you guys to pick up trash, pull weeds, whatever else. And each of us kind of are like the leader of the park, and we kind of recruit, you know, our friends to join us at the park that evening. And then if Scott, like on social media, you post it like, hey, well, I'll be out at these parks on this day, cleaning up. These are the things. And we invite people out to like help, you know, clean up a park for the night and keep it keep it simple, but that way we can help Scott out, you know, just the guys of whatever the little things. I mean, and that's not a knock that there were weeds. I mean, there's weeds everywhere right now, but it was kind of like, I'm sure your guys aren't getting into that kind of stuff. So maybe we can do just a, you know, low effort beautification event and have that at least be, you know, since the race was canceled, at least have some, you know, something, because we were all still excited about, you know, having some sort of event. So I wanted to throw that out there and get the group's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love the idea. We do a lot of honeysuckle sweeps and stuff like that, but we haven't really ever done, we've done a couple of stream cleanups, but we've never done just a parks cleanup idea like that. And we've got a pretty good volunteer group that comes out and does a lot of those honeysuckle sweeps and stuff, but I think we could get a whole new demographic crew of folks, whatever, that would come out and could help on something like that. So I think it's a great idea. I'd like to talk with my park staff and try to pick a park or two that they think might be great to do that in, and we can try to plan that out and have an event. Would you guys think in weekday evening is better or a weekend time frame? And the Blues just gave us a little.
Turn the damn thing off.
Just that weekend in summer might be hard with people traveling, but maybe that's just me. And then also Scott, like, I mean, there's how many of us here? There's like what, 8 of you? There's 8 of us. I mean, if you think the efforts would be best at 1 or 2 and we kind of blitz, or if it's like we tackle 5 and try and recruit friends for an hour. You know, I don't know, like if you want more coverage or like deeper coverage on certain parks.
I think more hands at one park at one day probably goes farther than one person. I mean, if one person goes in Blackburn Park, you'll never know that you showed up there. You put an hour's worth of effort in and it's just such a huge park. But 10 people going into Blackburn or Larson or wherever can really make a difference on that one day. So I would say let's pick a park or two, to start with and roll that out. And then if it goes great and we get a lot of volunteers that are outside of this group even, then we can, we can roll with one every other week or something like that until we hit all the parks or something. If it picks up steam and goes crazy, which would be great.
Not to complicate things, but would we want to reach out to Rolling Ridge and what will forever be Mac Hardware in my mind? I don't know the current name of it. Charms. Thank you. Or any other hardware stores that would be in the vicinity, and also let the Webster Kirkwood Times know, because that would be a great photo to have in the Webster Kirkwood Times. But
I think the Times is great. I don't know that this would be something that we would necessarily want to ask vendors to support, because I've got trash bags and gloves and whatnot that we can.
Well, I'm just thinking if they were partnered with us, then any clients who came in, customers who came into their store, it'd be a place to advertise.
Okay. Oh, I see.
So like they could say, if you commit to doing cleanup, we'll give you a free pair of garden gloves. And by the way, they know that customer is going to buy another $80 worth of stuff while they're in the store.
Yeah.
They get the garden gloves, they come to the thing, and we have more people come or get involved, or at least hear about it. I don't know, just an idea, or something simple,
I know our Boy Scout troop did mulching at, I think, Larson last time, and they loved it. It was easy. It was on a weeknight.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know all of the scout masters from all the other schools, and I think we can get every single troop to pick a park and knock it out one night.
That's an even better idea, because then they're both.
Yeah, our Girl Scouts
Yeah.
group picked up trash at Larson in like 10 minutes. So I guess that's what, Scott, like, I think you could let us know, but I do think, and I get that, like, we could start at 1 or 2 and just make a bang, but I think you could get, if each of us did our own marketing and then you posted it, I just wouldn't want 30 people to show up and then we're like, okay.
Right. Webster University have like a day, they send the students out. They used to.
And I think that
Pre-pandemic.
I don't know if that kind of went away. They did have, it's called a Webster World Day or World.
I know they used to send people to the schools and help do some work at Edgar.
Yeah, and we get a lot of help on Make a Difference Day, but that's in, November.
Right.
So, you're right, as far as picking weeds and stuff right now, this is weed growing season right now. So this is the time to hit that kind of stuff by mid-July, it's 90 and the weeds kind of stop growing a little bit. So, yes, I think it's a great idea. Let me talk with my park staff and find out where we got the biggest needs, and I'll see if I can get something going here. Maybe we start one middle of June if we can get one out there in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just let us know, I guess, through email, or can you email us?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll blast it everywhere else too. We'll put it on the Facebooks and the city websites and on our volunteer page, which is actually through the Missouri Botanical Gardens, Deer Creek Watershed Alliance. But yeah, we can get it up everywhere.
Okay, any other new business? Okay, on to liaison reports.
So Ms. Alexander's not here this evening, so I'll give kind of the brief overview of what's happening with the budget stuff. It has not been great for Parks and Rec over the last month or so, and budget wise. The city's definitely experiencing some financial struggles with our budget for next year. We're upside down by several $1 million, and we're trying to get that under control. Some of that's just revenue based that hasn't come back from COVID, and some of that is expenses just going up with inflation and supply chain issues, and then some of it is just salaries and such outpacing the revenues that we're bringing in. So at the last council meeting, Parks and Rec kind of took a little bit of a double whammy. The fire department needs a new pumper truck, and which is a new ladder truck, which is a little over $1 million, and that was an unplanned, unfunded item. And a little over $1 million is a tough find. And so they switched some of our funds around, took some projects that were in our capital improvement fund and pushed it out to our park improvement fund. And that was in the neighborhood of about $300,000, which is legal and it's ethical. We can do it. It was things like some tile work in here, some HVAC work here in the rec center, things like that. Typically, we've always put those in the capital improvement fund. It is eligible to go in the park improvement fund. This facility is inside a park, so it does qualify, but it's just not something we've historically done. We'd already pushed about $170,000 out of the general fund, or cut $170,000 out of the general fund in our budget. Some of that got pushed into the park improvement fund already. So all told now for next year, we're looking at spending $1.6 million out of the park fund and only bringing in about $900,000. So while we're solving some general fund issues, now we're making issues in the park improvement fund, which is a dedicated sales tax that only goes to parks and stormwaters, 80% to parks and 20% to stormwater. So likely what that means is somewhere down the road, we're going to miss out on a $300,000 project like a Larson Park playground renovation or something like that that would be in that neighborhood. I didn't have that money. That money was in our reserves. I didn't have it tagged anything as of yet, but it's going to hurt in future years.
What are they doing with ARP funds? Have those been?
So they're still working on ARP. So let me get to that real quick.
Okay, sorry.
So the council also asked for an additional $1 million worth of cuts from city departments. And department heads have put in some input on what that $1 million is going to be for us. I can't go into all the full details and such yet. We're still working some of it out, but it's going to be significant salaries. It's going to be loss of people, full-time, part-time people. It's going to be reduction in services. We obviously can't do the same amount of work with less folks to do it. It's going to be lower facility hours. The rec complex here will probably shut down earlier on some of the evenings, and weekend evenings specifically, which I don't think is a terrible loss as of right now. You know, we're open till 9:30. A lot of times nobody comes in after 8:45 anyways. So, or if they do, we have 2 or 3 people in the building, so we can shave some of those hours off, which saves staff time. But it's pretty drastic for Parks and Rec. So I'm nervous that specifically our parks aren't going to look as well. Our horticulture is not going to be, it's not going to look as great as it has been. We're going to be in survive mode versus thrive mode for the next year or so. We'll have to wait and see how all that plays out. None of that is fully in the budget yet. June 7th, I believe it is the next council meeting. That's the public hearing on the budget. And then council will vote the following June 17th, is somewhere in that neighborhood, to approve the fiscal year budget that starts July 1. So it's going to be dramatic. All these ideas, the QR codes at individual parks could be great because we're not going to have funds for those parks. The park cleanup day could be great because I'm going to have less people in parks going out and doing routine maintenance. I don't know, I'm struggling with it. My staff's struggling with it. We're not exactly sure what it's all going to shake out yet. So that's what an ARP fund. So the city has, council so far has approved about half, not really approved, has dedicated about half of the ARP funds to various projects. There's still a couple $1 million that we haven't received yet, and they haven't dedicated where those funds are going to go. They're still talking about that. That'll be part of the next couple council meetings and open public comments. They did, they've reviewed all of balancing act data that came in. So some of the items, a bunch of the city hall infrastructure that they've been talking about, new roofs, things like that at city HVAC and city hall. Some of that is going to ARP funds. They're
Not a new fire truck.
Part of the money, yeah, about $500,000 is gonna be added fire truck, added ARP funds. They're trying to move to electric vehicles for a lot of our fleet, so they're looking at I think it's 10 electric vehicles and charging stations, or maybe it was 10 charging stations, less vehicles. I'm not exactly that wasn't my part. But moving towards that, so that getting that infrastructure in place so that in future years we can buy out more electric vehicles versus combustion engine vehicles for police, for building inspectors, for vehicles like that. It probably won't be so much in parks because they don't really have heavy duty trucks yet. In electric, maybe someday. So that's where that, but there's still a lot of unknowns on where the rest of that $2 million or so is going to be on ARP yet. And we don't have to dedicate it now. We have to allocate it by 2025 and spend it by 2026. So there's not a huge rush to spend it all this year. And they're trying to, I think the thought is they don't want to just, they're going to use some of it to replace lost revenues, but they didn't want to take these one-time funds and just replace, just slap a Band-Aid on our budget for the next year or two. We'll be in the same boat 2 years down the road if we don't make some of these changes and cuts now. So that's the budget. It stinks.
Oh, that's really hard. Oof.
Yeah. So
Sounds like the park cleanups are a good idea then for next.
Yeah, we'll help you as much as we can with that, Scott.
yeah. So
Amazing.
Maybe they need to be recurring, you know, instead of make a difference day once a year, maybe every third Thursday needs to be park cleanup day, you know.
Mhm.
and whoever can show up can
Yeah,
show up.
absolutely.
We'll pick a
We
different
get
park.
done,
And
you get the work done that you can get done.
yeah, 20 people show up, great. If 5 people show up, still 5 more hands
Yes.
than we had, right? Yeah. So
That's gonna have to be the mentality for the next few years, it sounds like.
interesting. So I'll keep everybody in the loop on what those hours of change are gonna be for facility changes, and then as we finalize the other stuff, I mean, it could be that we don't do trash and bathrooms on Saturdays in the parks, that we hit them Friday nights or Friday afternoons, and we hit them Sundays, but we're not cleaning, emptying trash on Saturdays, things like that. That's all usually overtime work for us, so we're all still trying to figure out exactly how to make do with less. So and we'll still work real hard, but I don't think you'll notice it immediately, but I think by this time next year, you'll start to notice more. You just won't have as many hands touching plant beds and picking weeds and things like that, so it'll start adding up. And I'd love to tell you all to go fight for us at City Hall, but I don't think I don't think
Everybody else is like,
if all 10 of us stood up at the next council meeting, I don't know that it would really make tons of changes. So that's just the vote we're in right now.
Are other departments facing similar scenarios like this?
Most every department is going to be affected by this. There are some departments that have unionized contracts that won't be touched very much. But all the non-unionized departments are probably going to be touched with staffing issues and other dollars that are probably going to lead to reduction of services somehow. I don't know what those other departments have submitted. Whether that's, I know there's been talk in the past of, taking City Hall to a 4-day work week so we could shut down all the utilities on, for a 3-day weekend, save money that way. And maybe we're actually open later then in the evening so more people can come after they get off work to get kitchen renovation permits or things like that. I don't know if that's happening, if that's one of the things that's been submitted, but it could be things like that. But yes, every department's going to be hit. Parks and Rec is the biggest non-uniformed department. So I think we're probably taking, if not the biggest hit, one of the biggest hits. But we have 20 full-time staff members, where planning and zoning only has 7 or 8 full-time staff members, so we obviously not on the same scales, but it's gonna hurt. Good news. So that's budget stuff. Good news is the pool's opening this weekend. The pool is full of water. We actually had kids in there today. Hickson came over and did some cardboard boat regatta stuff. They're coming back again tomorrow. And we'll be ready to open on Friday for the general public and members. So we're pretty excited about that. And all next week looks like it's great cool weather. It should be mid-80s and sunny. So come on out and see us. Other than that, parks and recs will just roll along. We're getting the stuff done. It's summertime and busy. Can't believe G starts up here soon, and we're banging it out. Happy to answer any questions. Let's go Blues.
Sorry to hear about cuts.
I'm sorry to pass it along to you guys. You guys are residents are the ones that are ultimately gonna see.
Well, I see the plants
The
and
less
flowers, we
services.
can do without, just focus on that.
Yes.
Right, I
The bad
agree.
news is
that-
They're cutting the money they pay us to do this meeting. Oh,
Yes. Yeah, you guys are my first salary. That's.
yeah, no, same thing happened to Board of Education.
All right, well, that looks like it. Next meeting scheduled for June 22nd at 7 PM. I think we have to motion this one, all right?
Make a motion, we have to set the next meeting for June 22nd.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Oh, sorry, you want
Go
to
for it.
make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good evening.
Yes.
Who is our council liaison now?
Karen Alexander.